Good morning. Welcome back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. One of the things we were talking about, we went through a bunch of things there at the beginning, and just at the end of that last segment, I went into how we start that comprehensive planning, okay? How you, in fact, to look back and see how things have changed. For instance, pensions, I mentioned. Only about 18% of people working today will have a pension when they retire. You know, when our parents and our grandparents, they had nice big pensions, right, that would go along with their Social Security, and that's how they would be able to support themselves in retirement. And then the third, we used to refer to it as a three-legged stool, right? Pension, Social Security, and then your savings. But the savings was typically used as a safety net and was rarely touched. All right. So let's take a look at how things have changed. All right. If you look back historically, and I cover this in the introduction to my book, and that is that when we changed over from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans, this started with the passage of ERISA in 1974. That's the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. That's what brought in and created IRAs. Next was the Tax Revenue Act of 1978, and that established 401ks and SEPs. SEPs being self-employed pension plans. Second is SEP IRAs, self-employed IRAs, basically. Federal Employee Retirement System Act, this goes for those that are out there that are federal employees. Your system changed over back in 1986 and phased in with when the civil service retirement system was phased out, and federal employee retirement system, basically referred to them as SERS and FERS. That changeover, and that's also when the establishment of the thrift savings plan came into play. So what does all that mean? Well, it means this. Basically, it means that we had to save more. It became more our issue. Okay, so the responsibility for retirement, what happened is companies, we can go ahead and get rid of that slide. The companies determined that they no longer wanted to take on, right, the corporations and the government entities as well, recognize people, one, what's happening? People are living longer, okay? As people are living longer, that means that when you're paying out a pension, you've got to have a lot more money set aside to be able to meet those pension obligations. It's one of the reasons the pension system today in our country is in so much trouble, is because they didn't count on people living so long. That's one of them. They didn't set aside enough money. Here's another one. In the 80s and 90s, the stock market was given us such great double-digit returns that many of the returns that are used in the calculations of the pension funds, in other words, the companies put aside money to pay those pensions, and this can be government entities, municipalities, and that as well, but corporations, fall into this. So they set aside a certain amount of money to meet those pension obligations for their retirees. They calculate when they do that we're going to earn, and are you ready for this? Many times, according to reports, that's about 8% is what they're reporting is what they're expecting to earn. Now, 8% a year, how many of you out there would like to be earning 8% a year on your money? How realistic is that? In today's world in particular, let me give you some interesting facts. One, from 2000 through 2015, the return on the S&P 500 was closer to 4%, actually a little under, over that period. Not 8%, about half. And what did we say earlier about the S&P? It outperforms most equity mutual funds. So most investors are getting a lot less than that, in other words. So how are these pension funds calculating that they're going to get double the market return? This is a problem, isn't it? Here's another one to consider. What does it look like going forward? Again, no one has a crystal ball. However, some pretty smart people out there are putting out some predictions. One of them, John Bogle. He's the founder of Vanguard Funds. He's predicted returns of about 4% on the U.S. stock market over the next 10 years. He's also predicted basically two large bear markets over the next 8 to 10 years as well, of anywhere from 20 to 50%. Now that wouldn't be, this isn't unheard of. We saw something very similar to this again, right? 2000 through 2009, we in fact saw two bear markets of that magnitude. So not so crazy. It could happen when you look at all the other things going on in the world in particular. Who else might think about, what do we got Dr. Shiller of Shiller Cape Index, a very good predictor. Dr. Shiller won the Nobel Prize in 2013. What does he think? Same thing, about 4% return. Then we have one of the largest money managers in the world, BlackRock, which happens by, I mentioned the thrift savings plan earlier. Well, that's BlackRock is the money manager for thrift savings plan, all the federal employees and military and the like out there, among other large investors that they deal with. So What do they think? Oh, 4% average return. So you got more and more very large, very big names, if you will, thinking that 4% single digit, low single digit range for the U.S. market. And we've got yet pension companies saying 8%. So that's not very practical or realistic, I don't believe, right? So what does that mean with regard to pensions? If they're not going to make that amount of money, then the money they have set aside is even less likely. And already, even if they made 8% with the money they have set aside, most of them do not have enough to meet their obligations. So how much more so is that the case if they're not going to earn 8% on that money as well? What does all that mean? It means that more responsibility falls on the individual to save and prepare for retirement, and the 401ks and that. And there are ways to do that. I'm going to skip this next slide. Creating your financial roadmap. This is how the process begins. All right, in creating your financial roadmap, what I talked about there is where are you today, where do you want to be, and how can you get there? This is when I do up financial plans for new clients when they're coming in. This is how we do this. We start, where are you today? What do you have for income? What do you have for assets? How about liabilities? What are your expenses each month? Where are you today? And then where do you want to be? When you retire, okay, do you want to, is the goal to maintain your current standard of living? For most of us, it's at least that, right? And then maybe we might want to do some more things in retirement. We might want to have a little fun money, so we might want to add that in. And then that brings up the question then, how am I going to get there? And am I going to get there? Am I going to have enough? It's one of the most common questions when new clients come in is, I'd like to retire at this point in time. It could be, they could be talking 2 or 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 10 years. They could be talking a week, okay, or a month, beginning of the year, this type of thing. Whatever it is, we want to run those numbers for them so we can see, can you retire, maintain your standard of living, and not have to worry about running out of money? So one of the way we do that, we start with a financial roadmap. So I have documents that I use with my clients. The next one is creating your financial roadmap. It's basically, again, about comprehensive financial planning, giving guidance on your retirement benefits, and helping you create a plan that will be advantageous to you. All right, so we can get rid of that slide. Now, one of the things I want you to understand about that, when you're taking money out, so let's say you're going to save up money. What's the purpose of that money? To provide you income in retirement, right? So to do that, we need to know what's the return on that money that we need to make to be able to accomplish your financial goals. What's the safest way then to do that? And here's the other part. How do we make sure that we're not going to run out? Well, we got to calculate things like inflation and taxes. There are a lot of variables that come into this. We're going to take a lot of these variables in when we do up the plan for you. All right? So first we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to delve into this a little more and show you, in fact, some safe strategies as we go through this process. First, we're going to go through the process a little bit, and then I'll show you some safe strategies on how you can accomplish your goals. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.